Mom and calf stay close as the calf learns one of the most important lessons of its life: how to get to Antarctica. His first solid meal depends on it. He'll have to stay close to Mom. It will be grueling and relentless, and it will test them both.
Hola, James, ¿cómo estás? How are you?
Hola. I'm good, thank you.
It's such an honor. Of course, I've been a fan of your work my entire life.
Thank you.
Let me tell you, one of my favorite movies when I was little was The Abyss. I don't think that I understand a lot what happened when I was little, but it was so beautiful, and I kept watching it over and over again.
That's interesting.
And
well, thank you for that.
And since The Abyss and Avatar, you have a relationship with the ocean in your movies. Where does that relationship come from?
I think, if I was to really trace it back, it's my love of science fiction and my love of other worlds that came first. And then my realization in the mid-'60s, even though I lived very landlocked and very far from the ocean, 500 kilometers from the nearest ocean, my realization that the ocean was exactly the amazing alien planet that I always wanted to go to. So I convinced my father to get me scuba lessons. So I learned how to scuba dive before I ever lived anywhere near an ocean. And then, of course, we moved to Los Angeles, and I was able to scuba dive in the Pacific, and then I just wound up spending more and more time underwater. Ultimately, where I am in my life right now, I've spent about 3,500 to 4,000 hours underwater. So, that's a love affair that's never died for me. It's as strong today as it was when I was 14.
And you just mentioned that you like other worlds, and you are like the creator of worlds in the film industry. Everybody loves Avatar, and I have to ask you, why is it important to you to bring nature and to connect us with nature through your movies?
Well, Avatar is a very sort of roundabout way of connecting us with nature, because it was all done with computers and with animation and so on, and we never set foot in an actual rainforest. But we're trying to remind people that we have this natural love of nature, and it gets suppressed or it gets forgotten as we live in these increasingly urban lives, right? Where are you right now?
I'm in Chicago.
Yeah, so you're in a city, I'm in a city in New Zealand. We live in cities and we communicate in this way. So our lives are not natural anymore. So we have to remember where we came from, and we have to remember that the great power that nature has within all of us. And I think Avatar does that, right? But there is real nature in the world, and we have to protect it, because our urban civilization is requiring more energy, more materials, it's creating more waste, and it's damaging the oceans, and it's pushing these magnificent animals, the whales, to the brink of extinction. So how do we make space in our vision of the future for us as human beings for these incredible creatures that I think, if our show does nothing else, it shows that they have language, emotion, intelligence, strong social bonds, all the things that we have as humans. They clearly don't think the way we think, but they certainly think in as complex a way as we do, and they feel as strongly as we do. How do we make space for them in our world?
They don't even deviate by 1 degree. That means they're following a straight line, straight as an arrow. And that's amazing, because you're talking about this vast blue ocean with no landmarks.
And I was surprised at how similar we can be to them.
Yes.
Relationships, how playful they are, and even when they're eating, like they share their food,
yeah,
they take care of each other. And I got emotional at some point. I was watching the episodes and I was like, this is very emotional.
Good, excellent, that's great. That's a good reaction to have. I hope more people have that reaction.
And being a conservationist, what's the best advice that you have ever heard that somebody gave to you to try to save the planet, and that not anybody can apply to do the same?
I think it's the same message that you get from all of the kind of wise elders in the conservation community, which is just try to have the lightest footprint that you can on the planet. Take less, need less, you know? And nobody gets a free pass here. If you live 1,500 miles from the nearest ocean in Kansas, or wherever in the center of a country that's very far from the ocean, you don't get a free pass, because the agriculture and the industrial activities that are happening there, all of it runs downhill to the sea via our rivers and dumps out there, and the food from the sea comes back and is shipped in by trucks and trains and so on to where you are. So our consumption habits, our production habits and everything, you know, if you look at the Earth from space, it's mostly blue, but we mostly live on the brown parts. But just because you live on the brown parts of the planet doesn't get you off the hook. You're having an effect with every decision that you make, every food choice that you make, and your consumption decisions, things that how you interact with this world, have an effect on the ocean. You know, and we used to think the ocean was so big that we couldn't hurt it.
Yeah.
But now we know that that's not the case, that we know that we're having a very intense effect on the ocean, negative, almost universally negative effect on the ocean.
And if we don't change, we're gonna affect it forever. It's gonna be irreversible.
Yeah, look, and people have so many problems in their lives, especially in these pandemic years and just with what's going on in the world. It's very hard for them to think in a compassionate and empathetic way about something that's happening underwater, thousands of miles away from them. But if this series of 4 films can help create that emotional connection that you were talking about, then people will care more, and they'll connect more, and their mind and their imagination will go there under the water, which is how we should go. We shouldn't all go trooping into the ocean and go surround all the whales and say, you guys are great, because the whales will be freaked out, you know.
The males sing much less during this journey. While mom and calf talk in whispers, 40 decibels lower than an adult conversation.
For a long time, since I was a teenager, I think I know that you've been exploring the ocean. When you're doing this series, what surprised you? I mean, I'm sure that you have seen a lot of things in the ocean. What surprised you about the whales?
I think it's this idea that I always assumed that, you know, the orcas that were hunting in Patagonia that had been seen grabbing seals off the beach, I just assumed that's what orcas did. That all orcas everywhere did that or were capable of doing that, and that just happened to be a place where it was observed. But that turns out not to be true at all. I learned a tremendous amount executive producing this series. I learned a tremendous amount from the researchers and from just the footage that was brought back. So here you have a species that exists all over the world, but in different places they have different cultures. They adapt to their world in a different way through their intelligence. So in Norway, for example, they use tail slap or fin slap to stun the fish, and then they eat small fish. Here in New Zealand, they have a pack hunting behavior that allows them to catch stingrays off the bottom, and nobody else does that. No other orcas do that. In Patagonia and Argentina, they run right up on the beach and catch them, which nobody's ever seen anywhere else. And that's a hunting strategy that we demonstrate has to be taught, has to be passed down. And I liken it to teaching your kid how to drive a car. It's dangerous, they could get killed, but they need to learn how to do it. And that feeling that you have as a parent, the first time you watch them drive, you can totally relate to that mother or that grandmother that was teaching their child how to do it. Because if they get stuck on the beach, they're stuck and they die.
It's definitely a beautiful show. I'm so happy that it's coming out on Air Day. And thank you so much, James, for sharing it with us.
It's absolutely my pleasure, and it was great fun to do, and I'm glad you had such a strong reaction to it.
Muchas gracias.
Okay.
Adiós.
Gracias. Adiós.